Welcome to Connect with Rohan de Alwis on Ideal Island. I have with me the President of the United Centenary Front, Mr. Prashan de Visser. Welcome, Prashan, to London and to this program.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Great to have you on board here today. Talk to us about your political vision, what led to the start of the United Centenary Front. I think it's Eksat Sievas Peramuna. I'm not sure what the word in Tamil is, but you're free to explain a bit about the background. I know because you have a background from Sri Lanka Unites as well as Global Unites, etc., and prior to that as well. So let's talk about the United Centenary Front first, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me and for this opportunity. So United Centenary Front is Sri Lanka's brand new party. But as a political movement, we've been engaged for about 5 years now. We just celebrated 5 years as a political movement and 1 year as a political party. Our vision was, we were looking at the career politicians and the established political parties, and we felt it was more of the same. These parties have not been able to bring Sri Lanka to a developed nation status, haven't been able to create an inclusive Sri Lankan identity where it's a just and thriving nation for all, haven't been able to live up to Sri Lanka's potential. So in the words of Einstein, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome.
And we have been doing that since independence.
Exactly. So after 75 years, at some point you have to ask the question, maybe they don't have what it takes. It's either they don't want to or they don't have what it takes. Regardless, I'm not going to gamble my children's future and my children's generation's future on this same lot. That means a few of us, and many of us are in our generation and older, and people who stayed away from politics need to stand up and say, if you can deliver, put your money where your mouth is and actually start delivering. Because we armchair critic things all the time, but we have to make a sacrifice at some point and say, enough is enough, let's start becoming the solution. And that's what we as a generation started thinking. We always put our hope in one party or the other for the longest time. But when the political coup in 2018 took place, that's a moment we realized this is the worst of a generation that's in this political arena, and we can't expect anything from them. Very good, intelligent people from our parents' generation, honest people from our parents' generation, stayed away from politics because they said, this is muddy, it's dirty, we don't want to be a part of it. So a worst of a generation filled that vacuum. And then we're asking, what happened to the country?
So you say all the good people, the efficient people, the learned people stayed away from the roughness of the politics that came through. So how would you then bring your team into this strange boxing ring?
Exactly. So what we felt was, first of all, we had to have a vision. Why are we getting involved? What do we want to see? Many of us are at the peak of our careers. We're going to have to put that to an end or at a halt and say we're going to enter. But for what for? And the why was important as a rallying call. So we started saying we'll be mid-60s when Sri Lanka is 100 years independent by 2048. So 5 years ago we said, okay, mid-60s, we're giving 25 years of our life. What do we want to accomplish? And we set up 10 milestones for Sri Lanka. We may not be responsible for the Sri Lanka we inherited, but we are responsible for the Sri Lanka we leave behind for our children. So these are the 10 milestones. We set it up. How are we going to accomplish it? We said 3 ways to get there, to these 10 very bold and grand milestones. Number one, we need to have our own political academy to train a new generation of refined politicians, educated politicians who want to be held accountable and are transparent, and working with the philosophy that I'm a servant for the public. I'm not lording over the public.
Public servant, exactly. Public service.
And so we said Sri Lankaවේ එකම දේශ සේවක පක්ෂය.
Oh.
පාලනය කරලා හුරාම් කන නෙමෙයි, මගේ වාසියට නෙමෙයි, සේවක.
To serve
the nation. But at the same time, we felt the second thing we needed was we needed to educate the masses. For too long, Sri Lankans have been emotional voters. From one slide to the other, just not asking the critical questions, either blindly voting for one political party or feeling obligated to vote for a political party, or voting for a candidate because they've given you some favors, not knowing that they gave you government jobs, putting your children in debt, and you feel you're obligated to these people.
Now on that second point, Prashan, how are you going to change that? Because it's a huge uphill task, because as an individual voter, the people will want, they got used to a culture of favoritism, the what we call the goods, money, forget the alcohol and all of that. So how are you going to change that? Because it's a huge uphill task.
It's definitely an uphill task, but a challenge that we have to take if we want to see transformation in Sri Lanka. There are a few glimmers of hope. Number one, 35% of the voting population is under the age of 35. And as a result of that, we see that among the younger generation, there's a little bit more of a critical thinking, asking questions, not easily manipulated by the tricks of the past. Secondly, we are seeing this whole divide and rule political narrative is being questioned by not just young, but older, saying you all pitted us against each other along race and ethnic background or religious background, and we're not going to fall for that anymore. To hide your incompetence, you pitted us against each other. So there is a shifting. And then the Aragali also was a moment where people's civic responsibility came alive, and they were refusing to just silently wait. They wanted to be involved in the democracy beyond the polls, holding the leaders accountable.
So, sorry to interject here. You referred to the Aragalaya. Now, the Aragalaya was seen as a majority people's uprising. Do you see it that way?
I feel it was
The spontaneous uprising, or it was
definitely a spontaneous uprising due to the incompetence of governance, but also the corruption and the lack of empathy for what the people were feeling. And the people felt we need to take matters to our own hands. This Gota needs to go, this regime needs to go, and this political culture needs to go. So far they had 1 and 2 take place, but they're waiting for the political culture and the system to change. And that's what they're waiting for.
And it's still in place, I guess.
They're hoping that there is an actual election where people can finally speak and ask for that change or ask for a new political culture to at least begin that journey.
So you mentioned 30% or 35% of the population or the voting population, you can clarify that, is under 35 years of age. Doesn't that make the rest, the 65%, in the older non-social media, the old TV watching generation, who's been used to the usual favors and kickbacks and all of that during election times and after that?
But you've always had this generation under the age of 35 not as actively involved in the political arena.
I see.
And now there's an awakening of that group, feeling this is our future at stake, and also questioning all the paradigms of the past. That's the opportunity. But even those who are older, when Sri Lanka fell rock bottom to our economic bankruptcy, a lot of people's conscience was awakened again, saying, we've allowed this to happen. They have been fooling us. They have been betraying us. Maybe it's time that we think differently. That's another great thing. And then also this immunity to now using racist rhetoric has also. So even the broader populace is thinking. So that was our second goal, is one, a political academy.
Yeah.
Second, educating the masses. And I feel there's a better opportunity for that. And that's a long-term game. That's not going to happen overnight. But third is creating a platform for people who don't want to be part of the establishment but really want to serve. Because with people of competence coming forward and saying, I can deliver. I know how to deliver. I can work within a team of experts and bring about change. Asking them to say, now is the time to step up. Sri Lanka needs it more than ever, and let's go and do it. Because many of them, if they go to the established parties, you had to work from the bottom tier of that party to come up. Party seniority is more important than competence.
Yes.
And they're never going to be able to make an impact. But we're saying, no, we're creating a platform where it's a true meritocracy, where the best of the best in Sri Lanka and Sri Lankans abroad can come and serve without any bureaucracy, with a clear vision, and to get the job done.
That's really good. So you referred to the academy. Tell us a little bit about what's happening in the academy now.
So every year we have, when we first launched it, we had 1,000 applicants from across the country. As old as 45, as young as 19, same, and from all 25 districts, from 117 polling divisions were represented. So every year we have created a curriculum for 1 year. It's a theory and practice of political leadership. We study policy, from economic policy to education reform to health and so on, but also values of, what's the importance of transparency, accountability, why do we need these elements, and how do you be an honest, decent politician? What does that look like? But then also it's political skill. How do you use social media? How do you have pocket meetings? How do you raise money? How do you win over the confidence of a donor base for your political work to succeed? So once we provide the training, they graduate on the 4th of February every year. They
Independence
graduate one
Day.
class on Independence Day, because we have the 100-year vision. So it's like a factory of leaders being groomed. And then we give them a seat and saying, this is where you're running from. This is your district, this is your seat. Start building your base. Some of them will run for local government, some of them will run for parliament. Regardless, they're building their base.
So would they always run for election from the United Centenary Front, or are they free to sort of select their own parties as well?
We want to change the political culture. That doesn't mean only our party.
Right.
It means broader. So we open it up for any party. They can come. It's a full scholarship if you get selected. It's a hard process. They have to go through an interview. They have to be mentored by somebody before they're inculcated into the program. But they can go and campaign from any party. But our goal is that we are infusing new talent, people of character, people of integrity, and people of efficient capacity into the structures.
That's a very interesting concept that you have put into practice. So congratulations on the academy. Now, are there any other parties or other institutes and foundations doing this type of political training and civic conscious academies being run?
There have been political courses and institutes and organizations that have been there in the past, but to this level of 52 weeks of content, 700 hours of theory and practice, and then a mentor, accountability, helping them with a trajectory for the long run, that hasn't existed before.
So 52 weeks, that's a long time for, especially, I mean, if you're a retiree or if you're, in your 50s, etc., you may have that quality, the luxury of time. But if you're 19, parental pressures to qualify and academically as well as professionally. For the younger people, are there any crash courses and things like that?
So when you say 52 weeks, it's not a full-time course.
I see.
52 weeks
Right.
of the experience, it's about 4 hours a week.
Right.
But then you have to do practical things on the ground, so it might end up taking about 10 hours of your time.
Right.
But we are now launching a 3-month more time-intensive program for those who don't want to wait for a year. Because in our party, we will not give nominations if you haven't completed our curriculum and our program.
I see.
Gone through the accountability, gone through background checks and so on. So we want a 3-month program for new candidates to quickly go through it, go through their background checks, and then be given nominations.
Very good. It's great to hear, because the process of educating the people will come from the people who represent them, and that's something that is in the pipeline now. Now, I want to talk about youth radicalization, because in the absence of sources and people supporting the youth, mentoring them that you mentioned and so on, young people get radicalized, whether they are ethnically radicalized or religiously, etc. It's still radicalization in whatever format. How do you counter the radicalization? How do you, not necessarily counter, perhaps counter is a rough word, harsh word. How do you deal with de-radicalization, or if not even non-radicalization? How do you focus the people away from radical extremes?
So this was the work that I was doing before politically engaging. My area of expertise is in peace building and working with young people. And I started Sri Lanka Unites, and for 17 years it's been going on. It's one of Sri Lanka's largest peace building movements. I've now retired because now I'm politically involved. But that led to starting Global Unites, and we're in 13 countries. So this counter-radicalization or de-radicalization of youth is one crucial component of what we do. And what we found is extremist groups will try to brainwash young people to believe nobody else cares for them, nobody else has their interest in mind, we are the only ones who care. And then they would manipulate them to believe violence or hating the other is the only way to survive and be vigilant about their threat. And so what you have to do in that context is what we've seen, the common ground, a common theme that we see, whether it's Afghanistan or whether it's Liberia or Sri Lanka, is that there's very limited interaction across ethnic or tribal or religious lines. So they live a segregated lifestyle where these lies can percolate nicely and it'll grow well. And that's where we need to be broken. Even in Sri Lanka, our research indicated 70% of Sri Lankan youth don't have a friend outside their ethnicity or their religion. Small island nation. And out of the 10,400 schools in the Ministry of Education, only 112 schools have Sinhala and Tamil medium under the same roof. So it's institutionalized segregation, which is perfect environment to brainwash them against the other. And so integration is crucial. That's one key step. Second is this whole culture of mentoring, helping young people make intelligent decisions, helping them be critical in their thinking and not just buying over somebody's lie, not inherited prejudice. Question the prejudice. Ask, is there anything in it? I'm not going to be fooled by it and live my life based on a lie that my grandparents or my parents passed on to me. And so mentoring them through those decisions. So what I feel is today's terrorist, today's gang leader, today's violent criminal, today's destructive individual is yesterday's young person who's looking for a mentor, purpose, and opportunity. And that's where we need to take it upon moderate society's responsibility is to care for our next generation, not just our children, but our children's generation, and help them make better decisions.
Right. So how do you change from what you are doing as a political party to be a representative of the people in a future parliament? Because that's also not a paradigm shift, but a shift that you have to do, because you are now educating the people, having the literacy levels, political naivety is minimized, and so on. But at some stage, your party will need to be represented in parliament.
Yes.
Walk us through about your plans on that.
We're definitely contesting for the general election. We're competing. We're competing across the island because we are a multi-religious, multi-ethnic party. We'll be running in the Vanni district, and we'll be running in Hambantota. We'll be running in Kalmune, and we'll be running in Vattala, Gampala.
So you have representation, district organizers, electoral organizers
All
across.
25 districts, we have full-time district coordinators. We are very soon going to announce every electoral division. We are going to have key representatives. We're building the infrastructure faster than anything else that other parties may have seen. They may have needed 40 years to do it, but we're doing it fast because we've been planning for a long time. And then we'll select areas that we feel we have a better shot and invest more in those areas where the incumbent is weak on both sides and really bring in this alternative. So we'll be strategic about it. We don't have that much resources to run strong campaigns in all 25 districts, but we're going to be targeted. So what does a elected parliamentarian from the United Centenary Front go and do? Number one is we have that vision for Sri Lanka 2048 and things that need to happen. We know the legislative transformations and the initiatives that need to take place for that, and we're going to advocate for those legislative changes. At the same time, people who've been in Parliament for so long, we've at least, I think, 35 parliamentarians who've been in Parliament for 23 years or more. And that's almost 8,500 days of being a full-time politician. When you're there for so long in the midst of mediocrity, you're just stuck in the rubble, and you have lost it. You become mediocre. You are okay with small victories, and you're not fighting for a big victory because now you're jaded. And they have lost the fire in their eyes that they had when they came in. It's just gone, or they've compromised so much that they are almost uncomfortable in their own skin now. They don't recognize who they are. We need to bring fresh blood in to say change is possible. You need the momentum. You need to speak for justice. You need to speak for truth. And we want to be that vibrant voices in Parliament. And not just being vibrant voices, we want to be people of action and who deliver. I'd like to ask even some of our opposition, all our key opposition parliamentarians as well, they've been pointing out what's wrong with the problem, what's wrong with the country for so long, but helplessly and shamelessly watch while the country falls apart. They can't stop anything. They haven't been able to even inspire the people to rise up against it. People who are not politically associated are the ones who finally had to awaken the masses. They have not been able to bring laws to transform the economy, to bring about more justice, to have more transparency. They've helplessly worked, so they've been incompetent, or maybe they don't want to. And we believe it's easier said than done, but I believe you can do better than what we see.
Right. So the exap sevas peramuna. Do you know that word in Tamil for that, or? So United Centenary Front. Now, one of the things that has created a major problem for all Sri Lankans is the handling of the economy. I mean, there is no secret. You have to sell more, produce more, and get the remittances up. I mean, what sort of a vision do you have from the UCF towards improving the economy of the people as well as the economy of the country overall?
So number one, we have to increase our GDP. Our growth has to be our primary focus. This living on debt and living on borrowing has to end. And a failed, mediocre politician, that's the only thing they know to do. They don't have the ability to create vision and to give the incentive for new industries to take place. So that's number one. And how do we create that? I'll get to that. But secondly, is we have to reduce spending. the waste that's taking place. The government sector is inflated, it's inefficient, and 1.5 million government workers in an island of our size is not needed. The Rajapaksa regime from 2005 onwards added 1 million government jobs. And we cannot take this debt anymore. We cannot take this burden anymore. We need to find alternatives there, and we need to cut spending. But at the same time, we have to have a strong, aggressive approach. The thirdly is to counter corruption and the waste that happens because of corruption and the inefficiencies that happen because of corruption. So going back to number one on the growth of the economy, if you look at India, Mumbai University just about 6 months ago released a research that says 600 million Indians are middle income in status now. That means, roughly speaking, $3 to $18 of excess spending opportunity for the average consumer per day. Now, that's an amazing consumer market across the border for us. And we need to, like Vietnam went on the coattails of China's growth, or Hong Kong went on the coattails of China's growth. We have an opportunity to really capitalize on the Indian market, and not just India, China, Indonesia. It's the largest middle-income population in the world. It's going to be in our backyard.
Absolutely.
So we need to start creating industries for that. We don't hear any of the parties even talking about what are the industries you want to create, how are you going to position yourself, what are the strengths that we have here. And then also attracting talent from around the world to come to Sri Lanka to fulfill those areas that we are missing in talent, to be able to benefit from the economic wave that's coming. We're not ready. And we will miss this opportunity if we don't. We've missed so many opportunities in the last 30, 40 years. We cannot afford to miss this wave. And that creating economies for that. And then also with the IT sector, we are maybe $1.5 billion a year through the IT sector. But many of the IT experts in Sri Lanka says that if Moroto University is producing double, maybe we can increase that by double. And there's so many things not even tapped. Occasionally they have platitudes of here we're going to do this with AI, here we're going to do this. But these are just political statements. There's no strategy, there's no vision. And letting people who have been thriving experts to come to places of influence to make policy decisions. You talk about tourism. Singapore, a country that doesn't have proper rivers or rainforest or any of the beauties that Sri Lanka has, there's $20 billion on tourism every year. Sri Lanka doesn't even do 5. With Thailand, that has everything we have, there's 60 billion US dollars. We don't even do 5. We can do better. We need to invest towards that. And so there's so many ways to help the economy grow, but you need to put the right people in positions of influence to make the decisions, stop the political bureaucracy, take the government minister out of the equation, and give them the freedom, but with regulation, to help pump life into the economy.
Interesting point you made. Take the government minister out of it and let the bureaucrats or the right people, I mean, they have to be bureaucrats because they have to do a certain job. The word bureaucrat has also been given a bad shade. But we are used to a culture of politicization of everything. Even the private sector is becoming politicized now, let alone the government sector. So if you take the head of the ministry, which is the minister, out, do you think the public servants, permanent secretaries downwards, have got the practical 360-degree vision to do what you're saying?
Yeah, because when you have a government cabinet minister coming in and trying to run the show, and every time the minister changes, the vision is diluted or the strategy changes, so they're spending more of their time undoing what the previous guy did for him to build his own legacy, or using that ministry for him to gain his credibility to get re-elected. There's no vision for what the ministry is going to do. But having secretaries who are qualified and competent, running the show and letting them have a 10-year trajectory of here's what we're going to do with levels of accountability, you're creating some sort of sustainable, consistent growth, as opposed to this kind of tinkering that's going on. It's like we're removing ministries for spare parts eventually.
Yes.
And no results.
Yeah.
And so that has to end. This political interference has to end. And the only reason for all this political interference is not because they know better, they're definitely not more qualified, it's because they want to use it for their benefit. Because they say, I have to give jobs to people in my village. I have to make sure. So they use the ministry for the longevity of their political career, as opposed to helping the economy grow or do the exact task of that specific ministry.
So you believe in small government, small cabinet?
We are very libertarian in our mindset in that sense. We believe in small government. We believe you only need 15 cabinet ministers. We've been following very detailed research on what those 15 ministries are. We feel it's very well thought out. We can reduce this excess spending and really start spending less on government and more on results. And it can be done. But career politicians say, no, we need to be there. You all can't do it without the experience. Well, their experience shows us failure and bankruptcy. We don't want that experience. We need to try something else. Otherwise, we go back to Einstein's philosophy of insanity, doing the same thing.
Same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So that was a great narration or review and analysis of the politics and the political scenario in Sri Lanka. Talk to us about yourself now, childhood, family, school, and all of that, which we haven't discussed today. But over to you.
Sure. So, as my name suggests, Prashan de Visser.
That's a Dutch name, is
Dutch
it?
name, so Burger background. But my mother is from a singular background. She's from Ekanayaka family. And my mother's father, great-grandfather, was HJV Ekanayaka, one of the founders. He was involved in this SSC, and then he wrote the college song for my school,
which is Wesley
College.
Right.
So Wesley College had a very formative part of my upbringing because it's one of the most diverse schools. It's one of those 112 schools that have Sinhala and Tamil medium, all religions, all ethnicities, and that just helped me see the beauty of Sri Lanka's diversity. And I love Wesley for that because I have deep roots and friendships across various communities because of that. And also, even in our college song, it says, and when Wesley's call shall sound, a ready eye shall always be found. And so our call is here, we have to serve. And we've had people in the past who've served the country. And so that has always been a good formative experience for me. And also, my parents were very much part of serving the community. We did so much social work. My dad's a theologian, my mom was a social worker. She had led orphanages. They helped rebuild houses after the tsunami. They cared for people. They counseled people after trauma. They're both gifted counselors. And so they've always served the community. And we were around poorest of the poor all my life. People would come into our house. They would always, we were never allowed to treat anybody differently. Everybody was. And I saw how people suffered in our country and how much poverty has destroyed the future of so many people. And so that eagerness to serve came from the family. They served people, and I have so many younger brothers and sisters who are not related. I think over 100 children they've cared for from the time they were infants to 18 years old, expecting nothing in return. And so I still walk into kids or to talk with some of these kids who are technically siblings, but they cared for it. And so I really feel that love for the country, love for people came there. I hate to see people suffer. I hate to see injustice. And I hate to see that they've been suffering from generation to generation to generation. We have to break that cycle.
It's the recurring vicious cycle, isn't it?
So all of that upbringing helped me to want to care, want to serve. The easy thing right now is, for many of people my generation, is like pack up and leave. There are greener pastures outside, especially if you have an education and if you have opportunities. But I feel a strong conviction that we have to stay and serve. Sri Lanka has given me everything I have. And whatever I do internationally, whatever recognition I have is because of what I learned in Sri Lanka. I want to give the rest of my life to serve. And that's why I'm going to give it. And not just me, everybody in our team and in our generation was deciding we're going to stay here.
On that very interesting note, thank you so much, Prashan. I was talking to Prashan de Visser, the leader, the president of the United Centenary Front, Eksat Seva Speramana. Thank you so much, and all our best wishes to you and your party.
Thank you, Rohan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.